Okay, is everyone here? Okay, just allow me to speak a moment in Spanish. Bienvenidos a todos, chicas. Estamos aquí hoy con el cliente que, como ya bien sabéis, voy a hacer una pequeña introducción de ellos y enseguida pasaremos a los solares. No sé por cuál vamos a empezar, Eva. ¿Empezamos por el GES 1?
Yo creo que sí.
Están organizados, dependerá de cómo estén organizados en el vídeo de YouTube.
Manuela,
Sí.
Sí, está organizado según... Sí, está según el orden que pusimos.
Sí, según el orden
en
puesto,
Facebook.
están tal cual.
Perfecto. Bueno, vuelvo al inglés. Well, welcome all to our second session with the client. It is a pleasure to me to introduce, well, some of them you already know, is Navi Aksamov, the director of the Center for Urban Resilience and Ecology at Strelka KB. Also is joining us today again, Arkady Molotsov, which is a project director at Strelka KB. They both are from their headquarters in Moscow. Also, we are, today is joining with us Alexandra Chizetkina. She's an architect and managing director of Strelka KB. And also she's an MA in architecture and tutor of the AEA School of Architecture. And also is joining with us today Guillermo Corella Decker, which is an architect, an urban planner and project manager at Strelka KB. And I don't know if she's already here, but probably will join at some point also Dasha Paramonova. She also was with us in the last session. She's CEO of Strelka Architects CA. So the way in which we are going to proceed, well, first of all, thank you so much, all of you, for joining us today. It's a pleasure to have you here. And the way in which we are going to proceed is we are going to start with the GES1. You all know which are the, the different cells that are going to present. So I would like to invite you first, before starting with the video, I would like you to please open your cams and present yourself and your names to the client. And then after that, we will reproduce the video, which is gonna last for 3 minutes. And after that, you will have like 2 more minutes to, present any details you find useful for the client. And after that, the clients will evaluate your projects, and after that, we will jump into the next group. So again, thank you so much, all of you, for being here, and let's hope we have like a great session today. So first group, which is, if I'm not wrong,
group 10 from Grado, from a bachelor. Group 10?
Are you guys here?
Yes, we're here, but I think it's first group 7 from what I see on the playlist, isn't it?
It's okay, I can play the group number.
Okay, yeah, we can go first for sure.
Yeah, we don't mind.
You will share the screen, right?
Yeah, yes.
Okay. So we're team 10. I'm Carmen, my colleague Ines is here as well, and my colleague Kike.
Kike is here as well too.
Hi.
Yes, and we want to thank you for being here with us today. And now we'll play our video, and further on we'll explain a few details we've been working on. And if you have any questions, please feel free to ask. Yes, there's no audio. I don't know if it's only my computer or it's everyone's.
No. It's. I think you haven't shared the sound.
We start with 3 investigations that have an unpredictable variable in common, allowing us the opportunity to generate adaptive spaces. The first investigation is related to sustainability and changes in the hydrography of the Moskova River. The swelling and descent of the river, as well as its consequent floods, are studied to achieve a better understanding of water's variability and how it impacts the project. On the other hand, we analyze the fluctuation of Bitcoin and the required energy needed for its mining, as a result of it being part of contemporary stock markets. Finally, the third investigation is in charge of understanding image hybridizations as a tool for creating adaptive spaces within the building. This way, we generate a dialogue between the 3 investigations, which converge in the search for new educational environments. The unpredictableness part of our project is originated in the children. The purpose is to combine 3 programs in one, manipulating how space is generated so that it benefits the development of children through multiple intelligences and their personal development. These programs are public baths, kindergarten, and Bitcoin stock market. The project spaces themselves are put at the service of those who are going to be the users. The different studies we've developed contribute to the generation of dynamic spaces, which explains the benefits that each model experiences thanks to fluctuations in water, in Bitcoin, as well as in the topography itself. Therefore, our intervention is developed in 3 parts. The first is the generation of a new facade that determines the sauna and public bath environments. Further on, interior divisions are created by hanging strings that adapt the spaces to the children's scale and height. And finally, new chimneys in charge of mining bitcoins that follow the industrial site projected by the Guest 1. The energy supply required for the operation of the project is possible thanks to the energy generated by the movement of water through the existing and newly created pipes, as well as the energy generating pavement installed in the outdoor garden. Through 3 programs, 3 levels of communication are produced. Physical connections between the 3 units, which generate continuity in the movement and the possibility of generating an educational process, communication with Moscow, through the development of an outdoor garden that connects the Guest 1 with Moscow, and the last connection between Moscow and the Guest 1, and the whole world, which is the wireless connection that is created in the production of Bitcoin. We want to educate the children of the future in sustainability from a post-carbon world point of view, with attractive environments for their development, rest, and education, while being playful and changeable, based on fluctuations in water, Bitcoin, and hybridization. The aim is to design domesticities in public areas that revolve around living spaces from a ludic point of view, as well as raising awareness of renewable energies to which we have access to.
Thank you for playing our video. So yes, we are working on creating these new spaces for not only children, but also mining Bitcoin and generating new like hydrographies and things like that. And right now we're working on seeing how these new spaces are going to be generated in the Just One. If any of my colleagues want to add anything. Ines or Kike?
Yeah, well, pretty much what Carmen said, and also what you saw in the video, I think, well, it was pretty self-explanatory, but right now we're exploring how that facade is going to be built as well, how that structure is going to hold that like double skin, that we're going to use plastic to generate like those like interior saunas. And so we have to control now, like, you know, what pressure we're going to use for the water, what temperature, how are we going to control the condensation, and so it, you know, doesn't go inside the building, and how to contain that all that water. And so yeah, that's pretty much it. I don't know if Kike wants to add anything about his part, maybe.
No, I think it's fine too.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nabi, feel free to jump in, or any of the clients.
I think Arkady wanted to say something.
Yeah, I have a few questions. Firstly, I can see like direct relations between the increase of the water level.
Sorry, Arkady, we cannot listen pretty well to you. It's something weird with the audio.
Yeah, let me try once again. Now it's better.
Now it's better, yeah.
Better, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, so yeah, my question is, I have 2 questions actually. The first one is the representation doesn't show the direct relation between the water level rise and these design interventions which are proposed. I mean, there is, well, I can see why we do this and how we respond to the level of water which was rising dramatically up to the rooftop of the JS station. Well, this is the first comment, and the second comment. This is pretty curious because why you decided the third option for this area could be the Bitcoin farming mining station, because you know the farming of the Bitcoins is a quite resourceful demand, and it's a bit beyond the sustainability. You know, I mean, to mine, to craft Bitcoins, you have to consume a lot of energy. And there was an article on the New Yorker a couple of weeks ago where they asserting that the farming of the Bitcoin is almost like the coal burning industry. So I'm not sure that it's a kind of a nice topic to work with.
Okay, do you want me to go ahead, Ines, or you want to speak?
Well, maybe.
Yeah, I can speak about the. Sorry.
Yeah, maybe Guillermo and Alexander wanted to add something.
Yeah, if I might add something. Yeah, I agree with what Arkady is saying. Somehow, what I was missing is how are you guys studying the interaction between these three different things: the water, the Bitcoins, and the children? No, because they are all very specific topics that have very specific requirements. And I was missing a bit of the study of the use of these three different fields. So the interactions between all these three elements and how that's going to work. This is more like about thinking about the psychology of the children, the psychology of the water, the psychology of the artificial intelligence that is going to be mining this Bitcoin. So it's about the interactions and how these three different topics are going to work. That's what I would like to add.
Guys, I also would like to catch on what guys Arkady and Guillermo were saying, and maybe play a little bit the role of a bad client or of an angry client, asking you a few questions. Well, first of all, let's imagine that I'm the owner of this building, of the gas 2 station. We are the owners, the black and white guys. So our first question would be, what you are suggesting us to make from this building, how would it give us any kind of effective solution, I would say. As a client, I'm investing my money into this building, into the reconstruction or modernization of this building. Why would I do it? Because I want to work a little bit with ecology and sustainable development and resilience. Well, that's a global issue, that's true. That's the topic that is being discussed all over the world. The global climate and all these things are very important. But on the other hand, the talk is about money. So I have to really invest a lot of money, and I need to understand, is this the project which will give me some benefits in these terms? Or is it like a philanthropic project where I'm investing my money into a modernization which would give some very great social effects in terms of ecology and in terms of carbon zero future society? I would think about this. Maybe it would be interesting if you find some arguments which would build the storytelling in a way that you try to kind of convince the client that it will be really effective for him or her, or for the owner of the building, to actually use all of these methods that you suggest, to get some also economical interest in that, not only because we want to really work for ecological issues. Taking into consideration how Scandinavian countries have been developing, they started this kind of promotion of green and ecological way of doing things, let's say in the 60s. So it's more than half a century that they're doing that. Talking about Russian context and even the context of Moscow, we're still at the very beginning of it. So even if you're talking with the most contemporary client in Moscow, you would need to convince him or her why this would be an issue for him or her these days. That's the first point. And the second one I really want to to question the number of functions that you were suggesting for this building. Also a very questionable thing about what Arkady have been saying about the mining thing, which takes a lot of energy, and how do we produce this energy for doing this mining? And the third question is, are Bitcoins really that kind of popular these days? I haven't heard about this in a very great. It was like a very high peak. Now it's a little bit more slow in terms of kind of information floating here and there in Moscow. But well, I really like the way how you try to fill this building with the most unpredictable kind of things, which may give a very interesting effect later. But I would think the way you are trying to sell the project to the client in this way. Thank you.
Well, I think we maybe can jump into the next group to keep this moving, which is group number 7, if I'm right. So remember, guys, just jump in, present yourself, and we'll move on with the video.
Group 7?
Group 7, are you here?
Alejandro, Fanny, Juan José.
Alejandro is here. Alejandro Romero. But it's...
No, it's, well, we can jump into master.
It's not me.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay, so then let's jump in with the number 16 from masters, and let's figure out what happened with the group 7. Where are they? Group 16s, are you here?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead, guys.
Well, hi, we are group 16. We are also working in this one, and we are Cristina, Paloma, and Mar. I don't know if you can say hello.
Hello, I don't know where is Mar.
I think she's having some problems with internet, but we can start watching the video. Okay, thank you so much.
Students Cristina Alvarez, Paloma Naya, and Margasca. The site is located in a privileged place, in the first ring of Moscow, and on an island formed by the Moskva River. The bridge are the main pedestrian and road traffic connection with the center at the south of the city. After the diagnostic study of the electric power plant area, a series of physical atmospheres are elaborated and introduced into the model. From the intersection of these layers, a first division of the site is established according to the interest of each member, which is later negotiated to specify common actions in certain spaces. Due to the proximity to the river and the intention to use water as a common element in all the programs, the chain structure of the system patented by John Todd is proposed in a coordinated way as rules for the use of water in the project of each member.
The installation of the original water supply has been studied and has been taken into account. The system is made up of 5 phases. Phase 1, a septic tank included in the tower of the waste plant. Phase 2, tanks with microorganisms to eliminate waste. Phase 3, reduce dissolved wastewater pollution. Phase 4, the surfaces of the reactors are covered with vegetation, providing habitats for beneficial insects and microorganisms. These 3 phases are included in the crops and in the residence of elderly and students. Phase 5, sedimentation tank to clarify water. The last phase is located in the chimney of the supercomputer center.
The waste sorting plant will filter the water from the river and produce energy from the waste obtained during this process. Understanding the project as a purification heterotopia, after this sanitization phase, the water and its baths will spatially constitute and connect the other 2 uses of thermal baths and dwellings designed for urban singles. Terrestrial paradise is located in the northern buildings of the lot. So the prototype studies the use of bioluminescent bacteria to monitor the river water pollution and its application in lighting devices.
The building is understood with a common element that will be the crops that will articulate the program. Consumption and support vegetation is introduced for the construction of an artificial microclimate supported by technology to counteract the adverse effects of the city's climate. The main element to carry this out will be a glass envelope that will surround the factory building, joining it with the free space outside. These uses will take place inside this wrap plan envelope.
The open data movement consists of the release of public data and is presented as the maximum expression of transparency. New technologies allow the analysis of large amount of personal data. We propose the creation of a supercomputer that performs these operations. However, the massive knowledge of personal data is the newest population control mechanism. After the demolition of Rosilla Hotel, tunnels were found to access secret underground spaces reserved for the Dome of Power. Through two small charts, the leader can discreetly access the underground architecture where make decisions.
If you can zoom the middle one, the bottom, yeah.
This one.
Yes. We want to talk about the integration plan because in the video it's not clear, we think.
Yeah. So divide the plot considering the atmospheres of light, smell, and water. And we have reserved an area for common spaces, and we use part of this space to allow pedestrian access, creating a transversal communication between the two streets that border the plot. We have maintained the existing access for the vehicular traffic.
Marcos, if you can zoom yes, the waste energy plant and the rest of my program that is marked in blue is located in the area with less solar radiation closest to the river. So that's why my prototype, I'm studying the use of bioluminescent bacteria to monitor river water pollution and its application in lighting devices for the building envelope.
Okay, in the middle one, you can see the prototype. The data center is developed in two sides architecture, a visible one related to the open data, and the other one hidden, which takes place underground. So my prototype searched for the integration of the water tank of Yontot as a passive illumination method. I want to lay out transparent vertical tanks inserting the chimneys and use the reflection properties of the water to catch the sunlight and bring it to underground. And Mark?
Mar, are you gonna talk a little bit about your proposal, the part of your proposal? Or
yes, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. So to conclude, the data center greenhouse with crops is located in the sunniest area, marked in pink. The greenhouse will be equipped with technology to counteract the climate. So my prototype is a system of broad house plants, which will be the common element for the whole program. It is composed of a metal structure that will resist the weight and overload of the slab and also allows to grow the growth of vertical climbing plants. So that's all. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So should we see group 7 and then give the client the opportunity to talk about?
I don't know if the clients have something to do about it, but maybe we have time to go one by one. So
okay.
it's up to you guys, or you want to you prefer to see the 3 projects and then do like more general comments?
Let's talk now, otherwise we're gonna forget. We don't have such big memories.
That's good. Go ahead.
Now, if I might start, like for me, it's clear that these kind of projects are projects driven by a process. And if the process is broken at a certain point, it's very difficult for us to understand the whole story or goal of the project. So you talk about the beginning about diagnosis and interest, but you don't talk about what is the result of that diagnosis and that interest. So you present some kind of analysis, but we cannot see the conclusions of that analysis, and then you present some kind of product of result. So for me, that was like a broken line in the project. So we need to try to propose like a chain of thoughts that connects one thing with the other. That's the only thing I wanted to say, because otherwise it's just adding things instead of multiplying things. I think that's the most important comment I had.
Yeah, I wanted to add actually, because that's exactly the point I wanted to make as well. I think what's happening is that you're presenting to each other for a very long time, and you feel like we are in the context of the project, and we are not. We only seen this, like me and Arkady actually seen this project once before. So there's a lot of things that are not familiar to us as they are familiar to you. For example, the notion of the prototype, that you are doing a prototype. Like we don't know that. Or for example, another thing, I feel like there's 3 or however many people in the team, and everybody is responsible for their portion of the project, which is okay, it is fine. But then in the end, when you put them together, they have to feel like it's the same project. Otherwise, it seems like we are watching 3 different projects in the same presentation, and it's even harder to follow them. So I think to find potential links between those parts and creating one narrative is crucial for us to just follow the story. Otherwise, we are not able to completely understand all of the details and give proper feedback. And I think perhaps maybe as a group, as the site group, right? 3 groups that are doing the same building can create some kind of, I don't know, maybe it's a video or just even 2 slides of the site location and what it is. Because I think you're repeating the similar things in the beginning of every video, that it's the guest 1, it's the power station and the things like this. I think you can just kind of take care of that with just brief one introduction of the site that is done by all the groups of the site, and then go into the presentation of every project. So in that first presentation, you can tell us that we are looking at the site, and our tasks are to develop the 3 programs, to combine them, to develop a prototype, and so on and so on. So we understand your goals, and then you kind of tell us a story that is coherent and kind of holds together. Because I'm sure it looks like there's a lot of work and a lot of ideas there, but I felt like I missed a lot of them. That's my 2 cents.
Yes.
Can I, Arkady? I'd like to add on top of Nabi's that actually I really enjoyed how you guys tried to work with the context of the island. I think that's a small thing which was not facilitated so much in the first presentation, but then your effort to work with the context of where the building sits and what is the morphology of the island and what is actually surroundings of the building actually influence what should be there in the building and vice versa. I really appreciate this effort, but I agree with Nabi also that it's important to try to present your ideas and thoughts in a very kind of user-friendly way, especially when users are seeing the project for the first time, especially when they're clients, and clients are not always architects who are able to kind of get all the professional terms and also all the professional ideas. So a great way to explain your ideas is to say your phrase or your sentence in the way you want to say it, very professionally, and then maybe to give a more simple explanation, like really making sure that your client actually understood it. And just, you know, catching up what Nabi said, for us in our work, we usually say if client didn't understand something, we did our job not well, because it's our job as architects or authors of our projects to really bring this idea to the moment or to the level when the client really understands it well and also believes in it.
Yeah, I also want to add some comments regarding the organization of art. I mean, like, since you are working, we have a sound on?
Oh yeah, no, it's better.
Yes, since you are working in this group, which consists of 3 people, you always have, like, I think that it would be nice if you could try to organize your idea in the way that they have some intersection. I mean, for instance, one group have one side, and inside of the site you have 3 topics, like this water/waste management, like the food production and the data centers. But I don't see like the reason or something like why you are working in a group. It doesn't look like a group work. I mean, if you are working in the group, you have to find some kind of the connection between these 3 programs. I think that's like why you have like the waste management gives you a heat which you could utilize to use for food grow, and something to utilize to use energy to gather the data from these data centers and supercomputer. I mean, maybe it would be nice if you could start from like overall idea of what this place, and this is consist of 1, 2, 3 things, and then each of you describes what kind of things are inside of it. I mean, you could try to create some synergy from different topics, like a permaculture, when you multiply things and use all the values of your proposals. That's it.
Okay, thank you so much.
Well, let's try again. It is group 7 here.
Hello?
Okay.
Hello.
Hello. Yes, we're here.
So go ahead.
I'm sharing screen. Oh, I guess I can't.
Alejandro, you should only introduce yourself, because we are gonna share the screen for you, because
Oh,
we are
okay.
gonna share the video. You have to introduce yourself, the 3 members of the group, if you are here.
Sure. I don't know if my...
Yes, we're in here.
Okay. Hello. So I'm Alex. That's Juanjo, and our other member is Fanny. I don't think she's here right now. And we're working with how different generations are going to come to the building to create a new way of thinking about the future. And I don't know if you want to share the video. When thinking about a post-carbon future, we tend to skip a step. As Jameson said, it's easier to imagine an end of the world than an end to capitalism. The internet has become synonymous with the 21st century, but the imagination has started a deceleration process, and most production is just a remake or refurbishment of past significance and ideologies. Regarding climatic collapse, we've known about it for more than 10 years now, but it seems impossible to mobilize and take steps to do something about it. With this in mind, we propose 3 strategies: the visibilization of social installment and the accumulation of culture, a proposal to solve it through social cohesion and solidarity, and the ideological shift in how we think about the natural and the anthropogenic. We place a rise in Gen Z as the actors that can solve the current cultural stallment. While millennials are poisoned with irony, platforms like TikTok show us how Gen Z organize and face politics collectively. They have also understood the decay of imagination, craving haunted aesthetics of ruined futures that could have been. Hauntology is a diagnosis and a call to bring Gen Z to our building. With that in mind, we propose programs that could help build solidarity. In the southeast of the plot, we install a semi-open area to put together concerts, workshops, and markets. This space also serves as a park and includes deep water wells that grants us the water used for the other programs. One of the olfactory buildings is turned into a creative space for the development and treatment of virtual art. NFTs, non-fungible tokens that could be exchanged for cryptocurrency. This area consists of a series of arches and trusses with rivets, but also a prototype of partition, door or furniture made out of hanging polystyrene-filled mattresses. This open area and prototype also allows users to experience other realities and virtual art through VR, while the prototype hides and cushions them. The energy required to make this function comes from an algae prototype that starts their life cycle in the old fabric's chimneys and absorbs light to clean the air, clean the water, and reproduce, with organic carbon as its source of energy. This algae travels through the building and in the end gets composted and turned into biofuel. The water ends up in small beaches for the users throughout the building. With this, we close the energetic cycle of the building while also turning it into a living being in dialogue with its surroundings. This building is the foundation for the future, a place to conceive futures beyond the hegemonic ideas of home or family, and whose users in turn will spread a different set of values and a different way to organize.
Alejandro, yeah. Do you want,
yes.
you have 2 minutes more in order to explain something that it could be more about your project.
I think the project is still in development, and we have a lot of ideas that we want to put into the project that are not yet realized. But I think the video kind of explains it, the most general ideas that we want to end up having in the building.
Perfect.
Okay, I think Guillermo, Navi, you can go ahead if you want.
Yeah, thank you for the video. I have a few comments. The first about the start of narration, about this, how this place will transform in the future. And you know the funny thing about GIS1, that it survived all the visions of the future. You know, it was built before the revolution, and it was working as a GIS before the revolution. Then there was the revolution and the new visionary idea of the avant-garde guys of how we are going to transform our country into the great Soviet Union, etc. But it still was the GS thing. I mean, maybe, well, I think that the most funniest thing about it, it's really survived everything changes around. So maybe you could try to reflect it inside your project. And the second thing, I don't know, maybe it's a problem of the production, but like video ends very dramatically. It was just shut down, and maybe you could prepare some kind of the conclusion or like some kind of the logical ending for this presentation.
Yeah, I think the beginning was actually interesting, you know, because it started to setting up an idea, right? Your thesis, your point of view, and it was very interesting. Like I could actually just follow that, but then I think there's a link missing between when you start showing the site and you end the video. You need to actually explain how the video is connected to the site now.
I think that's a usual issue of projects when they are meant to be a little bit of architectural, but on the other hand of a strategic scale. That's what we actually usually work on a daily basis. If we make some strategic plans or theories or even things that involve some political arguments, here we should be kind of careful, because what you are proposing for the building, like a program of market, of some events, could have been proposed without even justifying it through this political way, you know? I mean, markets and some festivals is something which really attracts the younger generation, and not only the younger generation in any city for their holidays or for their weekends, or even to have a lunch there. I mean, take London or any other city like this, which is quite dynamic, where they are coming for a business lunch to a park after they're coming to a market. The justification here seems a little bit provocative, I would say, and I'm not sure that it's really needed there, actually, because the program eventually, which is proposed to this building, is not that provocative as the justification which you try to give. On the other hand, if we forget this part, or if we kind of step forward from this part, I think the program which you are suggesting is the most realistic for this part of the city, and for this building, and for this territory around. We guys are actually based on this island. We are just 2 buildings away from gas, and Arkady and Nabi are now in the office, which is like really 2 buildings away. And it's really a mixed use area with a lot of offices. There are also residential buildings. There are spaces which are converted into nightclubs in the nighttime. There are terraces with restaurants. There are architectural studios. There are many, many different things. So some cultural space like this, where people can consume but also produce something, is something which would really add a value to this territory, and would be really kind of adding something to this territory and to its daily life. Can we call it resilient territory when it actually works and not just, you know, stays there abandoned? Well, that's a question to be discussed, you know, but in my opinion, when an abandoned territory is modernized in a way that it starts to be used by people in a way that it really brings the benefit, it starts to have an extra value. So the moment is to kind of connect your justification to the proposal you give. And I agree also with Nabi and Arkady that it's important to zoom in to a level of spatial solutions. And sometimes for spatial solutions, you don't need to give this huge, very strategic, long-term, or very philosophical justifications. Sometimes you definitely do, but then they really need to be very clean and very strict. In this case, some of the spatial justification I would add also to make it more kind of bold. Thanks.
Thank you. Well, I'm gonna start just giving like a little bit of feedback to my own colleagues, since I know a bit of the school, your school, my school also. Provocation is the language we use most of the time in our school, so that's also part of it. No, and putting that aside, and also as a kind of a joke, I think this is the first project that I've seen that I could fully understand, and I was able to understand the teaming of the programs and how one program could help the other one. Now these synergies were created. I think that that's a very important point for us as a client. If you bring up this kind of video, now I know if I want this or I don't want it. But before, sometimes it was a bit difficult to follow that. And linking a bit also with what Alexandra and Arkady said about this building standing up all the revolutions. Like you talk about having a new future. but you use a very, let's say, traditional language, because as Alexander said, well, this is a market, this is an arts gallery, this is something we can have everywhere, and without all this provocation. So if you really want to make sense of that kind of provocation, you need to try to use rupture as a tool. So you don't need to rethink what is before or redevelop what is before. You need to reevaluate what is before. You just need to evaluate with a different condition. You need to develop with a different condition. You need to think with a different condition. So it's not about old future, because that's the way most of these kind of projects are built, because you use your actual paradigms and you just try to make them a bit forward. So that is just evolution. We need to use this rupture, and just instead of building up an old future, we need to build a new future. And for that, we need to create a new set of conditions in our minds and in the place. So even though the program was very well linked, I think we are missing a bit of that kind of radicality and saying, okay, we need to create this new condition of the place. Even though the program is this and this and that, because we are connecting these 3 dots, we need to create this new language about it. So that's for me, create the new future is not creating the old future. That's for me what I would like to conclude with.
Okay, thank you, everybody.
Yeah, thank you all for your comments. Yeah, I mean, I think it's clear. I don't want to steal like a lot of time here because we actually say this a lot of times during the classes. But as you can see, guys, it's very clear that, you know, it's very difficult to follow up most of your projects through the videos, you know, because we have to understand that in the videos, you don't only have to showcase, you know, the 3D model and going orbiting around it like all the time, or just, you know, we also saw some internal views and so on and so forth. We have to use the model as a source document from which we have to post-produce different documents to showcase the things we want to explain. If what we are saying is not followed up by images that actually explain properly what we are explaining, there is a huge disconnection between what we are trying to showcase and what we are actually showing in the video. But anyway, we will jump into this later on in our class. So let's move on with the next plot. I think it is the Kovskaya station, and the group, if I'm right, is the number 1. Are you guys here?
Hi. Yes, it's us, Marta, Berta, Regina. And we just wanted to make a small point. Our project or concept is based in kind of a hypothetical kind of near future. And then we can, the video will explain the rest. But that's kind of the starting point. So we're clear on that. Our cities have been shaped and reorganized around the myth of the availability of abundant energy, first through carbon mining and later replaced by renewable resources. These dynamics have given form to new architectural typologies and urban growth patterns that sustain energy-intensive ways of life. As long as its core is constituted by carbon form, the built environment as we know it will be fundamentally unable to supplant the current energy paradigm or to address the climate crisis. A way of overcoming this cultural and architectural legacy is by recognizing the spatial expression of carbon energy in order to establish a process of architectural degrowth. We propose a series of interventions that induce and accelerate the decay state of the station, understanding ruins as a catalyst space for the non-human living. As a first analysis, a material catalog is developed, locating and analyzing each of the station's construction materials, as well as extrinsic and non-human strategies of degradation. We propose an open-ended collection of alpha protocols as a part of a progressive and programmed degradation of Kievsky Station. Understanding protocols as mechanisms without apparent physicality that have the ability to transform space without defining the final results, but only the necessary steps to reach it, enabling, ordering, and prescribing certain actions to achieve a result that, although it has been planned, leaves room for the unforeseen, the contingent, and its conscious manipulation or not during the process. a sequence of events, of steps to follow, open to replication, modification, or subversion, which makes any authorship lose meaning if it's not formulated as part of a process in transformation. Some of the protocols described are oxidation through anaerobic bacteria, demolition of wooden structure by termites, or the rupture of pavements by roots. We do not look at ruins as spaces of aesthetic, functional, and moral decay. Ruins are not failed buildings, but ecologies that offer reproductive and creative opportunities as a space of in-betweenness. As such, its transgressive space is not obliged to reproduce the normative system of the meticulous planned-out city. Through the incorporation of animal and plant species, the anticipatory ruination, rather than forcing a process of de-anthropization, unchains a picture of degrowth in the consumption of resources. For the development of these protocols, it's necessary to generate a series of atmospheres. As a prototype, we're developing a possible simulator or generator of the atmospheres of the protocols. Based from the concept of Holozoic architecture, we propose a technology that responds to atmospheric changes in the built environment and translates it into sound or light. This prototype can be used to generate different soundscapes that help redistribute the human and non-human fluxes inside the station. Okay, and if Marcos, you can put the Miro for a second, please. We wanted to just kind of quickly go over one of the protocols as an example.
Where do I go, Marta?
To the model, to 04.
Okay.
Yeah.
And which one do you want to show?
The first one on the top left, for example. Yes. So we just wanted to quickly explain one of them, so it would be kind of a little bit more explanatory in depth. This protocol consists of oxidation of the truss of the trusses of the kind of the central space of the station. The oxidation is at first by the implementation of these water systems, which create a very humid atmosphere, and then the implementation of the anaerobic bacteria, which also needs to be, so we need to create an atmosphere without oxygen in it, or with very, very little oxygen, not without oxygen. And the implementation of these bacteria, which kind of degrade or oxidize the steel of the main structure. It's one of the kind of the longest protocols in time. There's variations. And then we also wanted to kind of point out that we're working on, because we understand right now at this point, the protocols are kind of detached. So we're working on this kind of master protocol, which explains how all of the protocols intersect, or how they overlap, or how they're programmed in time, so it can be a little bit more explanatory in a bigger scale. And I think that's it, right? Yeah.
Thank you so much, Marta, Berta, Reggie. Maybe we can, Alexandra, Navi.
Yeah, I can maybe start. First of all, I want to applaud you for the narrative and the style of the presentation and kind of the coherence of the presentation, because I can actually see that you are guys working together, and there's one idea and one style, and kind of it all blends in together nicely. I understand you start out by saying that the project is sort of based in this near alternative future, but I think I would need to know a little bit more about that future in order to believe in the necessity of your typologies. Well, you don't have to go too deeply into that, but give us a little bit more. And I see in the video that you sort of give a global perspective maybe to that, but also translate that into the Russian and then Moscow perspective. So bring us into why that is happening to Kievsky train station, and is it happening all around Moscow to all of the buildings, or just specifically to this one? That's sort of not very clear. So as long as you kind of cover that, and I'm not thinking about this, I can concentrate on your design. And I really like the idea that the ruins become kind of like this canvas that you are sort of working with. And especially it was very interesting how the roots are now kind of demolishing the pavements, and they're becoming like, they're creating something different. I wonder whether is it all kind of uncontrollable, or you creating some kind of framework or like an armature through alongside which this deconstruction is happening, right? So if it's roots that are destroying destroying the pavements or whatever, the structure, is it happening kind of chaotically, or you know approximately how it's going to be happening, and you know what the result of it going to be? Like, is it something new, something like a hybrid of ruin and architecture? So that just this idea of like creating by decomposing or destroying is a very interesting idea. I think you need to work a little bit on the setting of this idea, why it's happening. And as long as, even if it's a fiction, right, fictional world, you need to establish that fictional world, establish the rules. And as long as you follow those rules, there's not going to be any questions. But then if you create a fictional world and you're breaking your own rules, then I'm kind of forgetting that I'm in that world, right? So create a little bit of this world so I don't have to be distracted by that. And then we can be thinking about something very specific, your specific design. And I think there still has to be some kind of translation into our reality today. Something that we, like food for thought, or it could be through some kind of mechanism or some kind of prototype or something that we can actually implement on a smaller scale today. That would be interesting. So it's not just purely fantasy, but it also some kind of a hidden nugget in there, hidden lesson, or hidden something that we can actually use today. So
yeah, I also have something to add. I really appreciate the quality of this project. This is very developed and very nice in terms of graphical skill. But on the other hand, I think that it's like super controversial, because when you are talking about the degrowth here, it is weird, like why you're talking about the demolish something in the center of the city rather than just do not build, because I thought that degrowth is firstly about not to create a building that you then have to demolish. And in this case, I think that you have to develop like very strong motivation why you spend the energy, like physical, emotional, intellectual, to demolish the building inside of the Moscow center. Maybe in a very ecological and smart way, but still you have like something valuable, and then you turn it into something not valuable. So that's it.
I would also add that the way how you try to kind of formalize and formulate the storytelling of the project, even the visual, well, talking firstly about visual storytelling, I appreciate. Also in relation to the comments that were given in the beginning of our session today, they were really clear and understandable. The question comes when we start to talk about the meaning, because as for clients, we're quite interested to understand why are we doing this and what are we trying to achieve with it. I mean, the way, or reply to the question how we want to do this is very well explained. The question is why and what are we receiving by realizing this project or by thinking about this project. So in a way, I believe that when we're talking about any territory, where we should ask ourselves a simple question, what if? So what if this happens to this territory, and you're giving one scenario, and then it's necessary to reply to this question, what if we are adopting this scenario, what we're coming to? And what if we're talking about the other scenario, what we're coming to? And then it is more possible to have a final solution based on this tests and on this kind of explorations. So if you would kind of give more of replies to these questions to your presentation and to the project, I think it would become more and more argument-based.
Yeah, just to complement what Alexander just said, I think that at the beginning of the presentation, somehow you present your why, which is this carbonization of the world, but that's lost there. It's the starting point, and then you start with your decomposing story, which you create this kind of the new Planet of the Apes movie. So, but the question is, if we are gonna decompose this building, we're gonna fast forward evolution and take the Anthropocene away from the building. We need to know how are we going to create this new ecosystem. So we shouldn't be creating unbalanced ecosystems. So if we're going to put this bacteria that is doing this, we need to understand what are we going to do to compensate. How is this new ecosystem going to work? So if we are looking for the decarbonization of the earth and we are going to create this decomposing building through this bacteria, we need to understand how is that going to impact not only the building, but all the globe and all the big statement you made at the beginning. So how you create this new evolution in architecture that is going to create a balanced future? That's my question. I think it links a bit with what Navi was saying at the beginning. I think until one point are you gonna, because every time you introduce a new species in an ecosystem, you might destroy the whole ecosystem. So how are we going to control this? How it's again about circularity, about connectivity, about synergies. So what you are proposing is super interesting, super sexy, even like it's very like Martha Clark in the 70s, destroying, making holes in buildings. But we need to understand how that new system is going to work, because this is really like a new future or an old future, but we need to understand how that system is going to work. But I think it's a good job.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So let's move on to the next one, which is number 3. Are you guys here?
Yeah, we're here. Yes. Good afternoon. My name is Margareta Milenkovic. And
I'm Elena Albert Garcia, and our colleague Yumi is here too, I think.
I'm Yumi. Okay, so this is our video.
To define the post-carbon form is to observe architecture in both its tangible and vague and abstract structures. The polychronic projects the visible and the sensible and latent by layering them to a gradient of different variables such as the existing physical barriers, temperature, humidity, social behaviors, and spatial logics. Temporality is studied as a part of a broader understanding of movements in space, wherein the polychronic character of inhabiting a place like a railway station in Moscow makes the combination of activities and time management all the more complex. The aim is to plot a number of spatial logics amongst a variety of programs with different atmospheric sensibilities based on peculiarities of each user taken into consideration, and paste them onto the actual axis of Kievsky Vokzal. The distribution on different programs merged by a range of atmospheres and activities provides a medium for 3 specific architecture scripts that are to conjugate into a single spatial heterogeneous experience. A series of membranes is softly settled onto the nave, enriched with polymers that absorb carbon dioxide, taking advantage of the low environment temperatures in Moscow and the water heated by the auxiliary batteries located on the trains.
Meanwhile, a whole gradient of humidities is developed in order to create a variety of atmospheres capable of supporting various activities throughout the time, which are by themselves changing depending on the train flow and the water temperature. The piezoelectrics embedded in the ground act as a generator of energy, while creating portions of topography that lie on the points established as the main resources of body heat. The energy is later used to produce a variety of temperature situations in the space established by both membranes and set topographies. Lastly, the functional and structural support of the project is embodied by vertical elements and different typologies of tubes, which represent the physical extent of the already created sensible universes that maintain positive-negative correlation. These are meant to provide the spaces with a range of products in a variety of conditions. The project's interests are then blended into an integration plan, combined altogether with the previous definitions of timetables and activities. The resulting model aims to establish touching points among the structures, both physically and energy-wise, thus creating a web of point clouds subjected to users' personal choices. It's by means of a numerous sort of possibilities and conceptual multinomial regressions that the post-carbon form is achieved.
Okay, so we may add that the general idea is to explore kind of the correlation between the referred conditions such as temperature and humidities and activities and movements in space, rather than subverting the first one exclusively to users' commodities and caprices, we may say, which is kind of something that we've observed in the carbon era and that we are observing. So we are searching for a feedback and a co-influential relation by putting the intangible spatial undertones, as I said, the temperature and humidity, tracing by themselves the living of a place, way of a living of a place, and at the same time, the number of forms that these conditions may take shall depend on the energy, quantity, and quality provided by users' movements, ergo the body heat that we mentioned, and these by themselves depend on the train timetables.
My turn?
Yes.
Yes, thank you for the video. And well, my general comment is that it is clear that you have done like a very comprehensive job to trying to investigate how all these things could work. You're showing all these graphs and tables inside the presentation, but what is missing is like a bold narrative. You know, it's very complex to find out what is the key meaning of this progress, of this project, sorry. So maybe you, instead of showing all these graphics and all this intersection, you will try to focus on how to formulate your idea in a more clear way. So this is the first comment. And the second comment, I don't know, it's pretty minor, but in the first part of the project, it was mentioned that somehow the heat is absorbing from the train to convert into something else. I'm sorry if I didn't catch the idea in a proper way, but for me, it's a bit contradictory if we're talking about the post-carbon future and we're still considering the train is as a part of the transportation system, because for me, the train, it's a kind of symbol of the carbon era, and this is like a bit contradictory, I think. So I mean, there's like no future. We had this kind of technology, but it looks like all the mobility and all the transportation system doesn't change at all. Like if we still have trains go from the Kievsky Vokzal and they still like generate this kind of heat.
It could be different type of train.
Yeah, but if they generate heat, this is the same trains.
Yeah, actually, I think I wasn't able to catch all of the ideas, but it seems like you have a very interesting path towards, well, at least you have a very precise stab at what an architecture would look like in post-carbon, what could it actually do and what could it look like. And the prototype, that was very interesting actually. And I think if you would have actually kind of even focused a little bit more attention to that and explain the prototype even better, that would be interesting to see. But I think like you put a lot of work into the prototype, yet some of the details of it were missed.
Yeah, but I think that was what was really missed, not the details, because it really looks like a huge work was done, but the outcome is a bit missed, because in terms of narration, you have told it and showing all these things that you have related this, but you have like a very minor part about the outcome of all this research and prototypical work.
Thank you. Shall I respond, or?
Well, Guillermo and Alexander, maybe if you.
Well, I think I have to start saying I'm sorry, because I think that the language of the whole video and the storytelling, I think you see that it's very consistent, but I didn't understand it. I still don't know what are you girls doing. Like, what's the outcome of this? Why me as a client, I don't know what I will be buying for this project, to be honest. And I promise I try to pay attention. Maybe I'm just not so smart, but the only thing I could really get is that you are trying to implement an overall system that is going to work there. It's going to use heat, temperature, and all these things. But my feeling was that if you are trying to create a prototype of a system that probably will have a very low performance rate, because it's going to be new, it's going to be about catching temperature or catching movement in the place. What you shouldn't be doing is just applying that into a very specific points of a place. You need to try to make it more expansive and try to see where the performances are and use that information that the proper system is gonna give you to understand how the building is gonna work, not the other way around, that you create only the system in the way you think the building is gonna work, because we have seen many times, and we said every time, that we create a path like this, and all the people go like in a shortcut. So that's a bit the thing I wanted to say. Like, first of all, create a clear product or goal or project, and then the second one is don't think that you know how people is gonna be react to that project. Do it the opposite way. Create a system that will allow people to react to it, and then you learn. That system will learn from people. So that's the only two things I wanted to say. But language-wise and storytelling, it's missing this kind of key concept to explain, because the language is very consistent and everything is very consistent. So thanks.
Yeah, I would also catch up with Guillermo and say that I really enjoyed the consistency of the visual language and also the way you were kind of developing the story. Really bought it. And then on the other hand, I'd like to comment that when you're talking about mobility and new mobility and restructuring the systems in general and the place of a building within a system, it's really important to show several scales, because the system of mobility doesn't work really locally. It works when it works on a larger scale. So that's probably the moment which was missing in the presentation, or was not very kind of enhanced well, in a way that we could understand what's the role of the space you're showing in a larger system that you try to kind of redo. And I think if you would add this would really help in the general understanding of what you are trying to kind of say with this project. But thanks a lot for the visual aesthetics and the consistency of how you worked. That's a huge tone of work of how you kind of presented all your suggestions.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so let's move on to the...
Yeah. Should we move on?
Yeah, which is number 15.
Yes. Hello. We are team 15. Borja, Miguel, and me, Maria. And the three of us are going to explain our common approach before watching the video. We are working on Kievsky Station with individual projects, but in a coordinated way under a contractual agreement. To this end, the Shuhov platform hall becomes the core of our intervention and will remain intact, which leads us to work on the edges and promote our main objective, the permeability of the station itself.
Also we assume the station forms a vivid intersection in the city transportation network. And even if the future means of transport will change, this connection and easy accessibility of the station will remain. And we also approach mobility in 3 different ways, through information, ecology, and culture.
Working on an existing infrastructure, another one is added, a recycling center that must dialogue with a more human program where visitors can stay and spend time. Also, 2 approaches to the common project are established, starting from the media as architecture, and on the other hand, taking materiality as the medium. Thank you and enjoy the video.
We are Team 15 working with 3 given programs to implement coordinately at the Kievsky Station, a waste processing center, a media broadcasting space, and a theater school. The Kievsky Station is part of a bigger transportation network in Moscow, which not only connects the city with the rest of the country, but also forms vivid intersections within the capital. These are easily accessible places due to the high number of possible connections, from train to bus or from metro to taxi. In the future, this will surely change, but this intersection and easy accessibility will always stay. Our common strategy is to work around the edges of the station in order to increase its permeability in all directions. We will not intervene architecturally at the Shuhov platform hall, but it will be the shared common space between our 3 interventions as a public space. Yet, we'll be respectful with the rich cultural heritage of the entire building. Our interventions have as objective a mobility based on people, but which transcend other dimensions, ecological, informative, and cultural, aspiring for the station to evolve from a mere intersection to also a place to stay and enjoy.
Considering the places with the greatest influx in the surroundings of the Kievsky Station, such as the large commercial areas and the markets, a varied collection system is proposed, which allows recycling at source from anywhere in the neighborhood. On top of the neoclassical building, the recycling center rises up with a local-scale strategy. Receive the waste by direct access to the tipping deposits from the collectors. A series of conveyors, belts, and robotic arms separate the various wastes that can be recovered from those that cannot. A glass facade allows visitors to observe the recycling process, revealing the growing interest of Muscovites in achieving the goal of zero waste. The highly degradable organic matter is conducted on a conveyor belt to the intensive composting center, where it is confined to decomposition and maturation processes in a series of tunnels. Only the rest fraction of those materials that cannot be reused or recovered are taken to a fully buried incinerator, where the energy is recovered and used in the intervention and the vicinity. The recovered materials that were stored are loaded in a hyper-speed rail to be delivered to recovered plants, industries, and farmers. Hyper-intensive vertical horticulture and agri-food laboratories complete the proposal. The station becomes a hyper-connected node that during the night, at the end of the passenger use, sends the materials to the processing industries using the circular line of the metro. The station jetty becomes an attractor to stay there and become a place where inhabitants and tourists share experiences and socialize.
My project focuses on the informational dimension through a media broadcasting program based on 2 factors, hyperconnectivity and the duality between what is visible and what is not. Firstly, hyperconnectivity finds a strategic point in the station and its surroundings, since the Moscow Metro is the largest public city network that gathers people and offers free Wi-Fi, that also represents a virtual gathering of data and information. Secondly, what is visible and what is invisible is based on 3 binomials. The first one relates to the abstract character of data as opposed to people. The second one to the existence of mysterious secret metro lines. And the third one to a divided programmatic distribution, one part being superficial and the other one remaining underground. The project looks for both
the informational permeability of the station on the surface, and the living possibilities offered underground, thanks to its direct connection with the adjoining public surroundings, where some spaces are public, others private, and some are still secret. In this way, the station becomes a digital hotspot, rethinking the limits of physical mobility versus virtual mobility. It no longer is a mere interchange, but a data and information epicenter at multiple levels: the station itself, Moscow, Russia, and even the rest of the world.
Russia, and especially its capital, has always been an important center of classical art and culture. Some of the world's greatest pieces of literature, music, ballet, and operas came to life in Moscow with its architecture as background. Even after the revolution, Stalin used a neoclassical style as a tool to promote the socialist ideals in public buildings. Compared to the grey residential areas, these luxury train and metro stations are part of the Russian cultural heritage. This kind of architecture is in fact containing the most important transportation hubs of the city. These hubs are ideal places to connect the rich cultural heritage with the people that are already there, forming a new open and public cultural space. The elongated space between the Kievsky station and the shopping mall will be used to place a theater school and create a public space with qualities of an ancient Greek agora and the Las Vegas Strip. The theater will turn towards the station, using the rich facade composition as a stage. In order to connect this cultural heritage building with the project, the north part of the station and the metro platforms underneath are then analyzed through its details on every surface. The different densities of details will determine the optimum parts of the station for the project. Another connection of the project with the rich pre-existence is done through materiality, exploring new ways where materiality can trick the eye of the users. With the Venetian technique of scagliola, we can imitate marble with a moldable material that can capture ephemeral forms affected, for example, by the forces of gravity.
These three programs will be coordinated affecting the borders of the Kievsky station, increasing its permeability and providing this new perspective on future mobility.
Maria, Borja, Miguel, do you want to add anything?
No, we said everything at the beginning, so you can please continue giving us feedback.
So if I might say something like, I was like very touched by a sentence you used at the beginning, that you were doing this project in a team by contractual obligations or something like that, which was very funny for me. But when you have a contract, you have to all agree on the terms, no? And I had the feeling that the three projects could be together or they could be separated. I didn't see so much synergy between the three programs. Why are these three programs chosen to be there? And why are these three programs chosen to be there together? When you have like a complex building, like a station, and you have also three very different programs that are also complex, you need to create some kind of simplicity. And maybe the simplicity comes with the interactions between the programs. Maybe it comes with the language, or maybe it comes in other terms. But if you add complexity on top of complexity and on top of complexity, also as a process, it becomes very difficult. And that also is reflected a bit in the video. I had the feeling that you guys wanted to put too many things in the video, too many images, too many things on top, one on top, everything moving, and one were not moving and the other one. So I understood everything, but from a language point of view, I was a bit ashamed, not ashamed, overwhelmed. Let's put it this way, overwhelmed. So I will try to go back to your contract. That will be my recommendation, and try to clarify the terms. What is what we are agreeing on? And from that contract, you can build up three very different stories. Doesn't need to be three stories that are run along, but at least you guys know what you expect from the story of the other and how that other story is gonna help you and the team at the end to achieve a very good product. That's what I will say.
Guys, I have two minor comments, and maybe I'll come back to the second round if we have time. First of all, I was really intrigued by the statement you made that our luxurious metro stations and some of the architecture coming from those Stalinist times is something that we have as our historical kind of treasure, and the gray Khrushchev areas are not. I have to say that, well, in my opinion, it's really a wrong lens of how we perceive things here, because more than 50% of residential areas in Russia are those gray microrayons, neighborhoods built from 50s up to the end of the century, last century. On the other hand, more than 70% of the buildings in every city are residential buildings and not metro stations. Not many cities have metro stations at all, even in Russia. So we perceive it as our heritage too. It's just like the heritage, well, not heritage, but our history that we have to, take into consideration as well. And especially in the area of Kievsky rail station, there are neighborhoods of these buildings around as well. So that's the first comment I wanted to make. And the second comment relies on the basis that you suggested to make a Las Vegas thing there. Although if you have monitored the situation which is there around Kievsky railway station at the moment, there is a huge shopping mall which slightly reminds of Las Vegas and things like that, which just absorbs you if you get there on for whatever reasons. And actually, really Muscovites try to not to go there because it's really a terrible space, a space which doesn't have any human scale, any patterns of synergy, any place for production or anything. It's just consumption, consumption, consumption each square meter. And consumption as a concept in general doesn't really match with all the topics we try to kind of discuss here about more ecological way of doing things. So I would really think about this, and if to kind of justify the ideas of Las Vegas, maybe there needs to be a little bit more research done or more arguments built on why would we need to kind of prolong this concept. Thanks.
Yes, thank you for the video. I have a few comments. Well, firstly, I'm very surprised that no one of the teams didn't consider like the main topic of the Kievsky station, I mean the transportation. Of course, in the last one, you told about this cultural transition, this waste transition, and another one transition. I forget which one, but I'm sorry. But I'm really curious why nobody tried to think about how could mobility transform in the post-carbon era. I think this is like the crucial thing. And the second thing, actually, it's connected to the first one. I'm really curious why you propose this kind of free topics for this site. I mean, why you have to place waste management facilities inside of the former train station? Why you have to organize theater right here? I mean, this is some kind of the basic questions, and the presentation doesn't give you a clue of why you want to do it here. Well, you have this story about the transitional things, but it's not enough in my point of view. Maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, I wanted to first comment on the Guillermo's comments about the contract. I absolutely agree. I feel like maybe you try to use this as a silver bullet, kind of this a magic wand that we know they're not connected, but we'll just say that we are different projects, but we have a contract. But again, yes, I agree with Guillermo. Even if it's a contract, you have the agreements, and still has to, you know, when we are working with a different firm, you know, on the project, we don't have two different projects in the end. We have still the same project that looks as if it was made by one team. So even though if you're working as a separate project, you still have to have some kind of coherent one whole idea. And also, maybe it's a comment to maybe everyone actually. We are talking about post-carbon era. It's still sort of, first of all, it's still unclear where exactly we are located in the time, which year it is, which is okay. It could be different for everyone, but maybe you can let us know. And also keep in mind that some of the ideas that you are bringing into this post-carbon world is from kind of like 20 to, well, like 2000s, really. Yeah, like some, well, you spoke about Las Vegas Strip and the culture. I don't know how much of a culture in the Las Vegas Strip, first of all. And I also saw a few images of the Moscow city as someone kind of like looking at the Moscow city as if it is the future. I don't know, I feel like many Moscowites would disagree with someone who would say that the future of Moscow looks like Moscow city. I think this is not the direction that many people want to go. So keep in mind just these things that are, what do you take with you into the future and what you do not take with you to the future. So that's really kind of like an overall comment for all of the projects. And yes, again, with what Arkady said about the mobility system, that is like a very good point, that you, whoever works with the trail stations, have an opportunity to talk about the mobility as a system in the post-carbon world. That is in itself is a great idea, and what would part of that system in the shape of the trail station would actually look like is something that we haven't seen yet. I think they all kind of were transformed into something else, most of them. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for the feedback.
Well, thank you so much, guys. We are running short of time, so we will move on directly to our last plot. So I think we can start with the group number 2, if you guys are around.
Yeah, hi.
Hi, good evening to everyone. Well, we want to express some of the ideas before playing the video, and then maybe make a short comment after playing it. Well, in this video, we try to project some of the ideas that we find of our interest and believe they also will be of yours. And we try to zoom into the area and then portray most of our purposes directly into the shape of the project. We know that there is a considerable error related with the representation and the scale of our approach, and we want to let you know that we are currently working on it. And that's everything we can say from now. Maybe we can tell the idea above, but the video tells itself. I don't know, Ronte, what do you think?
Yeah, well, maybe the main idea that it's a cemetery and that it works from the bodies that are buried there and projects like a forest from them. I think that's it, like the main idea.
The project proposes the integration of a public green space in Moscow's metropolitan area in the form of an ecological cemetery. In the context of a post-anthropocentric vision, a cemetery is projected, where worship refers to the place and not to the individual. The project makes a direct reference to Celtic funeral passages, where the program can be enjoyed as a whole and in which the accumulation of bodies works as a generator of space. For the design of this large space, overlapping systems throughout the plot and its pre-existing facilities are proposed as a way of attacking Anthropocene materiality. The main targets will be pavements and facades. Those elements will be part of the future construction. Further on, other systems will replace these targets and improve the local environment. The project begins with the dismantling of the old bread factory facade. The building's skeleton is left as a monument to its own death, but also to project the new space. Simultaneously, the works begin to coexist with the burials. The debris generated is used to create a topography of mounds that house the tombs. A system of ditches and pipelines will be installed, solving the problem of contaminated water, not only cleaning it, but also creating a self-maintaining green space. This local green space will thus contribute to improve the problem of air pollution in the city. As today's cities are paved, soils are not permeable and the phenomena of heat island is generated. In the post-carbon city, soils must regain their role in the hydrological cycle, which has been interrupted with the serious consequences that this entails. Drought, flooding, and water pollution are directly associated with the properties of geological soil. Recovering its properties involves regenerating an erodible, evolutionary, and adaptive soil. This means adapting to one of the main effects of the Anthropocene era and reversing it. We will create a topography with the debris of the building's facades, covering them with an erodible temporal pavement, which will subsequently give way to the regenerative soil, fertile. The tree roots will support the granulometry of the substrate, preventing landslides.
Well, that's it. Maybe you may have noticed that it is kind of difficult to understand the global scale and the dimensions of the project, but to clarify it, the measure of the mounts are from 4 to 10 meters tall. It depends of the mount. And the passages are quite small in order to make intimate and personal ritual traces. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Julia, Ronte, Ainhoa, do you want to add anything or should we move to the comments?
I would like, it's more of an afterthought about something Alexandra said before. She was talking about what's in for the client. It's something I've been thinking about like for the class. And I was thinking that about our project is, I would say, if it was to be like a private client, the business of burying people in an ecological way, I think it will be in the future and in the near future a very profitable business. That's what I wanted to add. Thank you very much.
I think too, but it would be great that if you could kind of bring some arguments on the table, you know, that would really convince the other side. Well, keeping, well, if I have the mic, may I continue? I was Yes, I was just in a question how all this concept that you have just presented is actually located on Chlebozavod. And by the way, it's Chlebozavod with B, not V in the beginning. So if you're presenting something to a client, to a local client, please be sure that you name it correctly. So I was kind of quite, well, maybe a little bit tired already, I don't know, but I have my full attention here. But I was quite kind of blown away by the scale and the kind of the way in the abstract way in which the concept was presented. And then I had images of Chlebozavod in my kind of memory, which I tried to bring in together, but you didn't, the presentation didn't help me to. I don't know, maybe my colleagues did have a different perception of this, but I would really require a more user-friendly way of explaining how all this analysis and all these ideas about the terrain and the soil and et cetera, would actually somehow work with the area we're talking about. And Chlebozavod is an area which is not kind of a field next to a mountain. It's an area in a city surrounded by a lot of different buildings there. And this is probably a little bit what I missed, but I'm really keen to hear what my colleagues would say.
Well, I don't even know where this place is, so I have absolutely no idea where this cemetery is going to be located. So that's a bit of a pity for me. And also, this is something you should have shown, I believe, because this now what you present is actually a real post-carbon, post-Anthropocene concept, because it's just when people die. This is and this is like the real circularity, actually, you know. And I was missing that you were proposing, and you tried, I think, but you were proposing like more radical circularity, sustainability concepts, because at the end you are going to transform a place into a cemetery where we all make this cycle start again and we go back to the soil where we came from. And I think that you were kind of, as Nabi was saying before, you were taking concepts that are already getting old. You are proposing something new that is going to be built in the next 5 years, and then developing is going to be working for the next 25 years. So you cannot think with the technologies and proposals we have right now. You need to think of with the people that, not even your generation, the next generation. So you need to be really like try to foresee the future or the up-to-date technologies and systems and circularity that is going to help us to believe that a cemetery there is going to be not only profitable in economic ways, as Alexandra was saying, and you were trying to excuse yourself, but also in what is this going to bring to this decarbonization of the world? What is this going to bring to help the people to go there? I don't know, transform how a cemetery is used to be seen as a place where you go to grieve and then you go back, or what kind of proposals, programs, I don't know, what kind of experience are you bringing to the table? I will aim you to try to walk that path of be radical in this kind of sustainability that you were trying to propose, be radical in what kind of uses and how a cemetery is used. We don't need to use the cemetery as it was used in the past. And there are new ways to do that, or you can create new ways. So take the chance. Thanks.
Yeah, maybe you can be radical with the ideas, but not necessarily with the imagery, because what kind of jumping on the Guillermo's thoughts, that yes, I agree. It seems like you're trying to build a new car with the older engine, and the like kind of the radical kind of well, not, but speculation is happening, like the speculative things are happening more in the visual realm rather than the actual architectural concepts. And there were some interesting things that I heard in the voiceover about the kind of, if I would sum up it, the transformation of the materials, how they transform from one form into another through the course of their life, and then they sort of become something else. That is sort of interesting, but I didn't see the investigation of this concept in the project. And the idea of the urban heat island effect and the permeable pavement, and it's all very interesting. But yes, like Guillermo was saying, maybe the technology that we will be using in order to combat urban heat island effect is something else in the post-carbon society. Also, again, it seems like, well, first of all, Chleb Zavod is nowhere to be found. Yeah, I feel like well, it didn't seem, it a little bit seems like this project could have been anywhere. Like you don't need.
You don't need Khrebzavod, yes, yeah, exactly. You don't need
Khrebzavod. Yeah, it's like it could have been Kievsky, it could have been Guess, it could have been Strelka, it could have been anywhere. So like, you know, it could have been in China or like even if it's like you're saying, no, the architecture is not the more important thing, then the landscape of that is more important. If you're saying that, then the landscape of that area also doesn't look like that. So I don't feel like there's a connection with the site. You know, like there is really no connection with the site. So I don't know. You wanna jump in here?
No, I just thinking about the same thing about the use of this area in terms of this concept. I mean, you're really missing some interaction between your concept and the building, because you only think about what could you do with the site. Actually, you use only the ground cover of the plot, and you get rid of the building, get rid of the environment. So you focus on the plot of the land, and yeah, and this is quite strange. And also it is quite strange to use a reference to the like traditions of the Celtic funeral, because it's absolutely irrelevant for the Moscow realm. I mean, it's, well, actually it is strange to refer to like so dramatically different cultures when you're talking about something so rooted connected to the culture of each country, such as funeral process. So maybe you could find something like more local reference to support your concept here. But this is not the main issue. I think that the most issue is related to not use of the building and not use of the environment of the site.
Yeah, it's basically you can talk about the connection to the architecture or to the site as the landscape, or to at least the system. There was something that we spoke in the very first meeting, I think, where we talked about what these sites are representations of very specific systems like mobility, energy, and food production. And it seems like, well, I think almost none of the projects really can try to connect with those systems. It's almost like they are thrown away and reimagined, which is fine if this is like, if this is the route that we're going to go, that we are reimagining all of them. Well, first of all, then the site really doesn't matter. Like it could have been anywhere, anything. But then it has to be reimagined, at least with the architecture. If we're gonna like forget about the system, forget about the architecture, yeah, the context, and we just kind of like flatten everything and build our own concept on top of that, then what's the purpose of the site? There's no need for the site, you know? Yeah, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Should we move Edu?
Yeah.
To
the next group, which is group number 4.
Yes, here we are. Good evening. We are group number 4, located in the bread factory plot. We are, well, Alejandro Romero, who is here, Cristina Feito, and myself. And after the video, we'd like to make a short comment, but now let's watch it. And we hope you enjoy it.
Nature is the phenomena of the physical world collectively, including plants, animals, the landscape, and other features and products of the earth, as opposed to humans or human creations. There is no single part of the earth that hasn't been altered by humans. There is no nature anymore. Everything is artificial, or everything is nature. There is no artificial anymore. The water cycle, the light and the shadow, the topography of the land, the plants. That is the building, just like the pipe circuit, the sensors, the social media. A new ecosystem is created. It is a technological biological community of interacting organisms and their virtual physical environment. These dichotomies are the genesis of the project. Light and shadow.
Dichotomy of light and shadow, based on the analysis of the shadows cast by the volumes, as well as the spatial characteristics of these parameters, we decided to act in two main areas. During the summer months, this vast esplanade receives continuous solar radiation. Thus, we designed this veiled isotrope blur covering its extension. We decided to enhance its shape to collect the water contained in the night's humidity, using a textile mesh as a fog harvester. The next operation is located where the shadow casting becomes a thermal issue during the cold months. In order to solve this, we build these volumes from the shadow parameters, minimizing the shade casting. Different programs will be placed according to volumetric data, achieving optimal sunlight exterior surfaces and solar radiation-free interiors. Fauna and flora. Nature has always been our source of food. Now, we are cooking the earth to death. We are more and we eat more. To deal with that problem, we domesticated food. The project enhances that last fact and creates a hyper-productive ecosystem, which is the fruit of a happy marriage between biology and technology. Flora relies on software, sensors, and complex systems. Fauna? Well, fauna is in its natural habitat, while we develop meat grown in labs. Technology is our next nature. Soil and climate. Based on the analysis of the heat loss of the buildings and the analysis of the water flow on the buildings, the overlapping and intersection of these layers give rise to the space for intervention. An envelope is created that solves two things. The first one is to create a microclimate in the interstices of the buildings, taking advantage of the heat loss between them. And the second one is to collect rainwater through a circuit of pipes that takes it to a small geothermal power plant. Once the water is heated, it is used to acclimatize the space and supply the hot water to the thermal baths. Existing buildings will serve as server buildings for the program. Nature, as we have understood it so far, is not enough. Its resources are limited and cannot be adapted to us humans. Then, a superproductive nature is created. Biology and technology come together, creating a new ecosystem. In this new way, nature becomes more resilient, ensuring its adaptation to higher demands. The union between what has been understood as natural and artificial is considered necessary for the survival of the Earth. The project proposed a possible form to this juxtaposition.
Okay, Marcos, can you show the integration plan in the Miro? For the little
Yes,
column?
sure. Wait.
Okay, yeah.
Integration plan, right? This one.
Yeah.
No,
yeah,
here, this one, right?
I can see it yet, but yeah, that one. Okay, so maybe maybe in the video isn't too clear, we wanted to emphasize that the global idea of the project is to create an artificial nature, optimizing the climatic conditions through our models in order to achieve a multiplicity of programs exploiting its spatial and climatic characteristics. The union of the models, such as the transformation of the existing topography for better controlling sunlight and shade casting, allow us to host programs that benefit from mainly sunny outdoor spaces during the cold winter and indoors without direct solar radiation. The envelopes that manage to control specific areas for determined microclimates, such as the hot springs that through geothermal energy make possible bathing at 40 degrees Celsius in Moscow in December. At the same time that they collect the assets of existing nature to take advantage of their potential energy. So this could be also have interest consequences, such as the social media impact and growing popularity of the building. And together with the current 40,000 visitors per day, is the perfect marketing for the building. And also the towers finally work as an element of production and distribution of the whole organism. Hydroponic and aquaponic systems that optimize the usage of water and soil for self-production and also goods export, like a brain that controls the functioning of the entire plot as a natural machine. And that's it for my part. Thank you.
Thank you, Javier. Edu, should we move to
I think if the client has something to say around this, or if not, we can jump into the next one, but I'm sure they will have something to add to this.
Well, maybe just some short comments because the time is running out. I think you guys are talking about the food system, which is great. And it seemed like there were 3 interventions on the site where at least sort of connected with the light and water and so on. And the only thing is that they still seem a little bit as a separate entities from each other. They could have been maybe, if you would kind of get together and sort of think about how they could be reconnected, for example, as one structure or a connected structure, or like the stylized in the same way. So it doesn't look like 3 different things, like 3 different hats of Zavod kind of tried on the same time. That would have been an interesting thing, because like it seemed like the solar thing and the water thing were almost identical in some ways, yet they looked different and then they had different structure, and that was not clear why. But it was very clear, at least I could follow all the ideas, and it was a good presentation. It also reminded me of, I think OMA did this project. It's George Lucas's museum. It's I don't know, it reminded me a little bit of that. It's like this super like overimposed facade on top of a building. That could be the interesting thing. It's like if you would have sort of an existing Zavod and superimposed kind of structure on top of that does not distort necessarily the look of the building from the outside, but well, look at that building, for example. It's like it has the structure, like the core, and the facade is more like a flexible, and you can see through it. And in your case, it could have been something functional as well. So that could be something interesting. And also reminded me of a PS1 MoMA. For some reason, some of the exhibitions that are like in New York, there's a PS1 MoMA where every summer there's a young architect competition, and then there's a new pavilion there every time. I don't know, I mean, that would be something sort of interesting, you know, like what if there was kind of a brief for every summer, or like an annual thing where an architect designed a new canopy that collected water, right? Or a new canopy that filtered out sun or something like that. And then the building would change from year to year, yet the function would remain of like the water collection or something like that. So it becomes, or it could be something connected to the food system. So if you talk about the aquaponics or something like that, this place can become a laboratory of testing the prototypes of different systems, of different kind of typologies for the food system of the post-carbon era. That would be sort of, I think that I spoke about that in the very beginning, how like some of these sites, some of these buildings can become like laboratories for the development of the prototypes for the future version of the system which they represent. So like if it's a Zavod, they create something interesting that could later be implemented in the greenhouses somewhere in other cities of Russia or something like that. That could be like, you see, like we can go a little bit more deeply, a little bit, you know, creatively be in this area rather than kind of crazy visuals. We can talk about, you know, the creativeness of the ideas. Yeah.
Yeah, I also wanted to add that I really appreciate this presentation. It has its very strong narration, very strong and very clear narrative. But there's only a few things that I could recommend to maybe consider. And maybe you can go deeply into the topic of how your free theme could interact each other to facilitate each other. For instance, you create a shade and maybe you could also use the space under the shade to produce food or something. So like to organize this thing into the more connected system. I mean, because now it's all the resource of water, resource of light and of heat and like production. But I think that you could think about some kind of the side effects of each of these kind of solutions. And the second thing, I don't know, maybe I think that maybe it's due to this kind of topic of the food production, you know, maybe you could try to consider it as a gardens for the post-carbon future. But if we will look back, or maybe nowadays, we also can consider gardens as a public space because it's also very friendly and very open to people. And maybe you could try also to merge all these things with some kind of the public space, because now it's like super non-human side, but I don't see any reason for it to be like this. I mean, there is no kind of boundaries or things which could block the users from this area, because it has this kind of nice and maybe landmark architecture. It has shade, it has humidity. I mean, it has very friendly environmental condition to spend time. So, thank you.
Guys, I'd like to
Thank
thank
you very much
for the presentation, because while it was on the one hand very speculative, on the other hand was clearly explained, so we can really understand what is proposed and actually give some ideas to some questions to think about. For me, it was a trigger to think about why necessarily when we're talking about the food system, a food system maybe as a housing system, something which every other person needs, every other citizen needs in any city. It's something we cannot live without. So to me, the question was, why would we need to kind of create a very specific structure of a very kind of special design to realize this idea of a new food system when this is something we meet on a daily basis. Probably it would be interesting to kind of relocate this idea of the food system to a mass housing, for example, which we have at the moment, which needs reconstruction. I understand it's a question of kind of the site chosen, but it's also an interesting question which arises when we're looking at this concept. I think that on the one hand, the idea is very speculative. On the other hand, it's the type of the speculative idea which will for sure be reflected in our nearest future. So it would be interesting to see in general how this may be landed on a real kind of model of how this may work in a city today or maybe in 5 years. And for that, it's so much easier to work with the problems or with the issues that cities already have. So coming back to this mass housing, which needs to be replaced, at least if we're talking about Moscow and Russia's context, it is so. That buildings, as I said, 50% of housing buildings were built more than 50 years ago, and they were built as a temporary solution back then. So at this moment of time, they're coming to their worst state, and we have to really create the idea of what to do something, what should we do with them. And when we're talking about food system, it's, well, I believe there could be merged solutions. Well, I'm sorry for these fantasies, but thank you, because your project was a kind of a boost for these ideas of coming up. And I think that's one of the kind of key effects when a project becomes a base for a discussion of possible scenarios of how territory can be developed.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your comments.
Just very quickly, I just wanted to say two very quick things. I know we are late. First, you guys said that nature as opposed to humans. That's for me like a very pre-carbon thinking. It should be nature as integrated with humans or something. Because if we are going to talk a post-carbon era, we need to make this integration. Otherwise, this dichotomy is what is creating this carbon era. So that's from the starting point, it's a very complex thing. And then just introduce like a hint of a thought, like Alexander did. The presentation was very clear. Why? Because it was, in some presentation before, we had too many data. This presentation was more about intelligence than about big data. Let's put it this way. And that's the difference of having big data and having intelligence. We cannot process infinite number of data. So we need to we as architects or designers or whatever, we need to be the ones that are filtering that data so that all the people can process it. And that's for me the key on what somehow has been or is usually missing in this kind of super complex approaches that are so comprehensive that you as a client, you get lost. So difference between big data and intelligence, that's one of the things. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Well, thank you guys. Let's move on. I know we are out of time, but let's try to go very quickly with the last project, which is the group number 10. Are you guys here?
Yep. Can you hear me?
Let's go.
So we are group number 10 for master. We are 4 persons, Maria, Fran, Rocio, and me, with Sema. And I just would like to give you a brief comment about our project that would like to talk about post-carbon urbanscapes, talking about death, humans, and how we use the death as an engine of the architecture, which is the container of the project. And as you have said before, which will you give to you as a client? We will give you the first place in the world that people have the chance to choose about where and how they would like to death. Thank you so much, and we can play the video.
The project was born out of the need to provide an answer of the greatest human question, death. What is life? What is death? Where is that frontier, that limit? But above all, where and how does it take place? We spend our whole life thinking about what our end will be like, who will be present at that moment, and what will be the degree of suffering involved, dying with dignity, painless and freely. The term euthanasia means in ancient Greek, good death. Greek culture was a pioneer in naturalizing death and unbounding the material disappearing of the body. In modern Greek, we could call and therefore project antecterio as the building of goodbye and antiosoi as the moment of farewell. The term post-carbon refers to what, according to us, happens after carbon, after life, in multiple layers: energy, matter, spirit, nothingness. We propose a circular system that welcomes and provides an architectural solution to the phase before, after, and at every single moment of death, from the theatrical and technical narrative in equal parts. Plot with a productive background, this circular system of body matters is composed at the first time by a film and theater school, preparatory of the body and spirit for the moment of death. The rooms of the school are sheltered by a lower level and forest in that aid seclusion, leaving the upper parts of the room for the film projection and the staying of the student, who will have a residence close to the school. The subject to die can choose when and how he or she will die, whether there will be people watching, whether it will be a family farewell, or if it's gonna be more individual and pursuit act. This takes place in the arterial, located in the structural axis of the project, using an expansive circular grid that provides a compositional response to the entire plot, able to choose how he wants his body to be treated, proposing solutions that range from crematoria, burial in nature, or, our favorite, the donation of his body to the science, within the corresponding legal and sanitary frameworks. To this end, in the third phase of the circular post-carbon system, a research and co-working territory is planned, where, through the study of human tissues, the treatment, classification, and qualification of human matter after death is carried out. Finally, there is a space dedicated to large-scale distribution thanks to the connection with the rational world health system by land and air, where an organ bank and a transplant market are planned, which will not only come from decadent user, but also from those people who altruistically or not so altruistically want to donate tissues or organs. At the same time, in the upper parts of the space, separate and less noisy, there will be a space where people who came to the project can talk to physiologists about the decision they are making, on an even higher level than the previous one. Both the professional who works in this area and the people that their families, if any, who need time to carry out the organs will be able to live there. As a project of peace and eternal rest, the plot is occupied by projecting prototypes that speaks of all of these phases in a thermodynamic, organic, textile, and performative level, investigating with the different layers of the project from the physical to the digital. The space of the plot is topped by accumulative standalone dwellings in vegetable terraces that responds, according to modulation, to the needs to the different programs connecting nature to the inhabitants, thus closing this natural post-carbon cycle. Thank you very much.
You guys want to add something to that, or should we move on with the commentaries?
Well, I would like to say that since we made the video, we've been working on how these areas are seen as a unit, more in a lookalike architecture.
All right.
I'd like to say,
Go ahead, Alessandra.
Yes, I'd like to say that there should be a very specific reason why the very important topic like death and death, well, I wouldn't say as a catalyst of architecture, but how it's represented or reflected in architecture should be thought of exactly in this area. For me, it's a little bit unclear at the moment, although I really fully support the topic in general, because I think that's an kind of undeveloped yet topic, well, especially in Russian context, it's somewhere far away. So it's an important way. And it reminded me of the movie Island from 2005. Yeah. I don't know if you were inspired by this. Well, it looks a little bit, at the moment, it looks like a scenario for another utopia. But if we are talking about the more kind of putting this in a local context, I think there is a room of work to be done yet to really locate these solutions spatially on the place, on the territory you showed us in the beginning. Because at the moment, I don't really have a clear connection of why this thing is happening exactly in this space. I don't know what are the justifications for that spatially. Why would people be interested and what would it give actually to the territory around? How would it boost the life of the city or the future of the city? I think this part is a little bit missing for me, but I appreciate and applaud for the important topic you actually raised with your project. So thanks.
Yeah, if I might add on top of that, it's really like a project for the post-carbon era, because I saw a lot of flying buildings on the model, so that was funny. No, being serious, like you talk a lot about the process of dying and more in the mooring period and that kind of thing. So I think this is not a new topic. I mean, we have been dying since we were created. So we have a lot of architecture built in that sense, and a lot of writing that talks about how we should take this process. And usually it's funny, because when you're dead, you're quiet, but then all the process when you write about it is more about the movement around this event. So I would just recommend you guys that you create like a strong statement about how you react to a mooring period, how this is going to change in the future, how this is going to create like a new situation. I don't know. I will provoke you to try to be like inspirational in that sense, and also look to the past, because this is not a new topic. No, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Do you want to add something, Nabi? I saw you were hesitating about it.
It's pretty.
And even the smart ideas.
It was very. I don't know. The fact that we're ending with death, that's pretty good, because my brain is pretty much dead at this point. Well,
Think philosophically about this, no? Don't worry.
Yeah. Well, again, I might be nagging a little bit, or like being annoying with some irrelevant comments. but maybe if we use the audio, make sure that we can hear what you're saying, because if it's hard to hear what the person is saying on the voiceover, and the subtitles have the overlap with the colors, so we cannot read them as well. That's kind of hard to follow. Like it's either the audio or the subtitles, and they're both kind of hard to follow sometimes. It's a bit difficult. But in any case, I feel like I don't want to discourage anyone from trying to investigate kind of speculative ideas or like daring ideas. In reverse, I applaud it. If you have courage to go into uncharted territories in architecture and design, it's great. But when you do that, you accept the risks of the critique, and you have to be like absolutely sure that your projects have to be like twice as strong as a typical architectural project. Like you do not want to fall into this category of the projects that become caricatures of themselves. Many times you can see the projects like this in many architecture schools today, where it's kind of rather than really deeply going into investigation of some concept, it's trying to distract you with the create visualizations or kind of unorthodox visualization techniques and stuff like this, which is great if they serve the purpose of your story. That's really what I'm trying to say. It's like, I don't want to, come out, none of us really here are kind of like super extremely boring architects that are drawing with a pencil and we only recognize, conventional architecture, and we're like kind of old farts here. No, we all also went through kind of speculative programs and finding things like this, but we also understand the importance of the arguments, and like we mentioned many times today, if you talk about the future, do not bring necessarily some of the things or infrastructure into that future that we know is not going to be part of that future, and things like that. It's if you're building a new story or new kind of reality, think it through from many angles. Yeah, it's I don't know. Does anyone? Maybe it's more like general comments, really.
Yeah, I think that it's a general comments. I mean, most of the presentation needs a more strong justification on the why and what is the added value of all of these proposals. So yeah, I think it's kind of a general thing.
Guys, I'd like to just quickly catch up on what Nabi and Arkady were saying. Well, we were quite critical this evening, and on the one hand, sorry, on the other hand, not sorry for that. Please take it as a kind of a trampoline to the other level of argumentation of your projects. I'm really just on the same train as what guys were saying, that it's important to be speculative, to try to like break the limits of what's happening in today's world. But we are architects, and we should never forget that eventually whatever ideas or strategies or fantasies we try to build in our projects will influence the space that surrounds us or future generations. So it's important to, in every project, to show how that level or that scale, like the huge scale or the long-term scale or the long-term kind of planning, will eventually end up in a particular space that would surround you or the future generations. I really appreciate the way the kind of the limits or no limits of the thoughts that you were presenting to us today. It's just an important thing that you shouldn't forget within your practice or even within your educational projects. So thanks a lot for this bunch of thoughts that I will be going to sleep with today.
Well, thank you. I think this is a great point where we can wrap up. First of all, don't apologize for being critic. I think all the feedback that you gave, it is priceless and very, very good for the ongoing development of the project. So I want to thank all the students for your work. And also, most of all, I want to thank the client, Guillermo, Alexandra, Arkady, and Navi, and to the Center for Urban Resilience and Ecology for all the thoughtful and very, very valuable feedback that you guys gave us. And also for the time and for allowing us to actually stall 20 more minutes of the time that we were supposed to steal from you. So thank you so much. We will see each other again in a few weeks. And that's it. And I wanted to invite all the students to just open the mic and give an applause for the session. It has been like a very long one, but I think also a very, very valuable one. So thank you so much. Bye guys, see you tomorrow for the students and see you the client in a few weeks. Bye-bye, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Thank you.